Well, good morning. How are you, Tavis?
I'm doing well this morning.
I feel a little bit more fit today.
There you
Today was the
go.
I'm gym guy now, and I did elliptical next to Tavis Westbrook this morning. You've been
There we
really
go.
diligent. You've been on top of that thing. So I'm proud of you for being in that routine. That's really cool. How long have you been going? You've been pretty regular there for a while.
So back in the gym, kind of pretty consistent, I would say, since I want to say I started maybe in December. It might
Yeah,
have been, I don't think it was November. I think December. And then we went on vacation, did the BVI trip and then came back and then got back in the routine. So
yeah.
it might have been late November. I don't recall exactly, but nevertheless, it's been at least the majority of this year so far. So
Yeah. Well, that's great. You got a good habit going. I've never been a regular gym guy except for that one stint where I thought I was a up and coming heavyweight boxing challenger. And so I worked out a lot then. And really the biggest thing then, and I've just never been autonomous entrepreneur slash workout guy. The guy that's no matter what happens, he's just always going to the gym. He always eats right. He runs his own business. I need some accountability. I need some supervision. I just know that about myself. I'm really good with people. I have a lot of skills, soft skills that some people don't have. But when it comes to paperwork and timelines and all that, like I need some structure. And so whenever I had this trainer for the boxing, he just so happened to have a felony and he could not drive. And we became friends and I would just take him to the gym every day. That was just our routine. And he taught the class in the morning every day. So I would go to the apartment, I'd pick him up, take him to the gym, we'd work out, he would hang out there for the rest of the day and somehow get home. And we just did that. And so having that accountability of knowing someone else was depending on me to come pick him up and the class was waiting on him to do the class, like that really helped. And so I can't
hmm
replicate that, probably I can't. I mean, I'm sure I could find a felon somewhere that needs a ride, but finding an MMA boxer trainer that's really a nice guy, might be a hard deal. So, but yeah, I need to. I'm getting back to it. Yesterday was a good day, kind of getting some things lined up. Talked to our friend Scotty Sanders, who was on the podcast several episodes ago. But that's a great episode. That's one of our kind of our mindset episodes. He's not necessarily
hmm
a real estate investor, but he had a lot of really good things to say just about time management and productivity. And he's one of those guys that's just disciplined just because that's in his blood. He's just really, really good. But we talked yesterday and he just had some really good things to say. So feel energized after that and got some plans together for real estate and for social media, getting some clients. I've had some successes with real estate, a little bit of setback with social, and just trying to push forward, trying to figure all that stuff out. So, um, what are you up to? I know you said you may for the first time in a long time have to run 2 paint crews, which that's an accomplishment there.
Yeah, and I think it's it's for good reason. The painter, my primary painter that I have, started working for me in 2014, so over 10 years ago. And prior to that, I probably switched painters every 6 months. Right,
Mm,
it's kind of always been one of those tough things. You need painters on every single job. They're one of the most important you know trades on your job because they leave the story. If you've got bad paint or crappy paint job, it's not done right, prep work's not done right. It's one of the first things that people see. It
yeah,
doesn't matter what you did behind the walls. It doesn't matter what you did with anything else. But if paint looks like crap, the flip where the project looks like crap, right? So
mm-hmm,
um, the other part to it is a lot of painters have a hard time managing funds
mm,
and managing their time and their hours on the job. And paint's one of those things. You kind of need the house cleared out. You need a solid amount of days, 3, 4, 5 days, for the painter to get in there, do what he's got to do, prep it, you know, do everything, tape everything off, plastic everything, spray what they need to spray, get back in the walls and you get to a point where they pull off all the plastic, and then you can start doing floors and start doing the other things, and then bring them back for the final. So, we've got a pretty good system now with these guys. I mean, in the past, I've had painters that would drag out a job and be on a job for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and they're jumping around, and they do this room and they do this room, and you're trying to get trades in, and then everyone's getting mad at each other because the painter's having to double back. I think I told you recently, one of the things that we changed was years ago, I learned it, is I actually do tile work before I do paint. And the main part of that was it didn't matter. The tile guys, their hands are dirty. There's dust flying everywhere. The bathroom that was just painted and you're doing tile work essentially has to be completely repainted, especially if you're using like flat paint. And so we just started doing all the tile work ahead of time and then taping everything off. Right. So that's something that we learned, and we trial and error and went through it. So all that to be said, this paint guy that works for me, when he first started working for me, he didn't speak any English. And I'm very proud of him. He put himself actually through Northlake College and learned English and grew his business. And he still doesn't have a lot of employees that work for him, but he runs a very good operation. He just doesn't have a lot of help. And I've noticed more and more over the last couple of years, mind you, I've been slower on projects. So even though I feel like, hey, I should get, this priority, I haven't kept him as busy as other builders and other, customers have. So it's important to know that he's done great growing his business, and I'm proud of him to be busy. But right now, it's making it really challenging as I've got multiple projects going.
Yeah.
And
He doesn't have two crews. He's
and I'm like, hey, I need you on this one, and then when you're done here, I need you to go here, and I need you to go here. And he's like, oh man, I got this big job over here, and I got this big job here, and and he's stressing out, right? So now I'm like, okay, I got to get some other help. I got to get somebody else. I can't wait 3 weeks, to have him do what he's got to do somewhere else and then get on mine. That doesn't make any sense at all, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. I mean, this other paint crew I'm using right now is, they're not as good. Like they painted the exterior of the house in the colony for me, and their amount of prep work was not to the degree that my normal painters is, but it's okay. For what we're doing, it's fine. I don't know if 90% of people would notice what I notice, but
you're just used to how he does it, and
exactly. So
plus, I know him, and he's super sweet guy. Not to mention he's a really good painter, and he runs a decent business. He's just a nice guy. And I've said this before, but it seems like most of your trades sort of you've whittled them down to this certain personality of kind of just nice people, just sort of easy, relatively easygoing. You don't have just a whole lot that scream and yell and cuss and walk off jobs and all that stuff and make other trades mad. And plus all your guys kind of know each other. And so they know who's here and why they're here and all that stuff. So it works out really, really well. So, but yeah, that's nice that you're busy enough.
Well, that's important. And it's important to try to get your trades to talk to each other. I've noticed over the years, a lot of trades don't like talking to each other. They don't like conflict. They don't want to, cause any problems. They just kind of work around each other, or, they'll show up and there's too many people and they'll just leave.
Yeah.
And they won't communicate, and you're like, what's up, man? Why didn't this get done? Oh, there's too many people there, and so they don't do that now, but I've had that happen in the past. And so it's just important that everybody kind of tries to work together. And
how many of your guys are Ecuadorian? There's several of them, right?
I don't know about Ecuador. There's some, I've got some people from Salvador, painters from
Salvador.
Guatemala.
Oh, okay. I thought you had several that were they were from a similar part of the world, and they kind of had that in common. And
no, so my electricians, the majority of them are from Honduras.
Honduras, that's what it is.
Yeah. So a bunch of them are from Honduras. And we joke because the main boss has been in Honduras quite a bit lately. So I think he's got a boo thing down there that's keeping him keeping him going back.
Yeah.
So
What's funny is his brother sounds just like him. So if you're talking to him on the phone, like he could easily just pretend to be Callie and be the main guy there. It's like just pretend he's here, you know. But
yeah,
yeah, they
yeah.
do a good job. So yeah, you're super busy. I have several irons in the fire. I think I mentioned last week I've got a couple that are going to do the buy before you sell loan. That's an interesting new thing. So we got approved on that. We're going to start shopping for a house for them. They're doing this bridge loan, and then we're going to get their they have a lot of stuff, and their current house will sell much better
A lot of
once
stuff.
it's yeah, Tavis was there, and it'll sell much better, even though it needs a lot of work, no matter what. But it'll look bigger. I went over there the other day, and I could just feel it. The house just felt lighter. There was some space in some hallways in the living room. Like, man, this really does make a difference. Let's keep going with this momentum here. And so now the thing is, I am going to go this weekend. So this is what you get when you work with me as a realtor. I will come over to your house and help you not kill yourself trying to. He had he's 91 and he's got this 49 Ford he's trying to change the tires and wheels out on, and he's got it all propped up on 2x6s, and this like
Oh
he's
gosh.
got this wheel over here on this block, and he's got a jack over here that's not quite tall enough, and he's like, you're going to die out here. And so I'm going to go this weekend with one of Luke's friends, and we're gonna try to get the new wheels on the 49 Ford, and we're gonna try to just clean up the shop some. It's just a real mess, and he needs to be able to take pictures of these cars so he can market them, and other people can
Mm-hmm.
come by and look at them. So we're gonna just try to get the barn where it's sort of sellable on some of that stuff. And so yeah, that will be part of my weekend as extra service to go over there and put wheels on the 49 Ford. So which
Well, that's
I'll
fun,
very much
and
enjoy. Yeah.
at least your teenage son wants to do that stuff with you. I don't know how much you twist his arm, but
Well, that's not
you
my
know.
son. He's not here. It's one of his friends who's very
Oh,
nice,
okay,
and who
okay.
he's kind of one of these guys who's like, hey, if you have any work, he actually helped us demo. He helped us demo Mapleton. He came over there
Really?
for a
Oh,
day.
that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Nate
I
was
will
over there
say
for a
that it
day.
is funny. I've got a couple of Landon's friends that actually hit me up, that want to
Hmm.
learn. I've got one in particular that has hit me up and he's like, can I intern for you? Well,
Yeah,
that's kind of tricky, right? And I'm like, yeah, we can talk about it. So I've kind of encouraged him a few times to show up and, you know, run around with me or,
yeah,
move some materials, right? Because I normally order like a lot of materials to my house,
yeah.
for these jobs.
He just
And
needs to
so
go
I
over and
was,
run a wheelbarrow for Pablo. That's what he needs to do. He needs to
yeah, right.
start. He needs to start on that run and then kind of work his way up.
Funny story is I put Landon, I for me personally, I started working like 14, 15. I think my first W-2 job I was 15 years old.
Yeah, me too.
Worked for a company called Smith Commercial Painting, which is where my brother worked. And so my brother is 9 years older than me, and he was able to actually get me on as
Nice.
a painter's helper for a summer job. I came down from Rhode Island and lived with him for the summer, and got a job, and would do primer and do prep work and do all kinds of stuff. And we worked at I think that summer I worked in multiple places, but one of the places I remember working was Birdville ISD in Haltom City,
Hmm.
um, doing a school. So nevertheless, I started in that field, and so I was like, man, it was a good way to kind of cut my teeth and get started.
Mm-hmm.
And I might have got paid like $5 an hour or something, whatever it was back then, but it
Yeah.
was something. It was a check. So my son, when he was 13, I got with my painter and I said, hey, it's summertime. Can my son come work for you? And Landon went and worked for him for one day, and prepped and sanded, and was kind of a little bit of a lost puppy. They mainly speak Spanish, and it was partly my fault because I was there with him for a while and kind of lined him out, and then I left him, and we packed his lunch and said, here you go. And he worked one day for him, and I don't know why the painter did it, and he kind of set the wrong message because he ended up paying my son $100
Oh my gosh.
for
For a
for
day.
a day prep work. And so, I think it was just one day. I don't know if it was two. It might have been two, but nevertheless, I know it was a pretty big, check, or it was cash, and Landon was 13, and he's like, "Oh man, it's a lot of money, but
Yeah, I don't
man, it
have to
was
work
hot."
again.
And yeah, and he never went back.
Yeah,
He never went back. So
he spoiled them.
it did not work the same that it did for me at that age, as far
No.
as being motivated by, and you would think, you make $100, you'd be motivated to go back. But
Yeah, my first job was 525. I worked at Tomlinson's feed store. I was 15. My mom would drop me off there, but I was the only guy at that store, so they would unload feed. So I would, put 40-pound dog food, bird seed, and all that up on the shelves, and we were always unloading trucks. And so that was a decent job.
yeah,
But you know how like long after taxes it takes at 525 an hour to get $100.
yeah,
Like good grief, you just feel like it never adds up. But yeah, it was. I enjoyed that job, and I've talked about doing blinds and stuff like that. So yeah, Luke has never had a job. Allie has not worked yet. We they talk big and they want to make money, and then we actually talk about, all right, we'll do X, Y, and Z. Feel free to go pick up poop. I'll pay you $5 or whatever, and they don't
right,
want to do
yeah.
that. So yeah, it's an interesting exercise in trying to teach them how to do that. So anyway, all right. Well, why don't we get into a little bit of a market update? So every week we come to you and we talk to you about the Dallas area. We both live in North Dallas. Tavis lives in Plano. I live in Carrollton. And we know mostly about this little corner of DFW, but we try to take a look at the bigger picture of things. And in looking at our MLS, one of the interesting statistics that I found was the number of houses for sale is at 39,000 on our MLS. And I've explained too, our MLS goes over to Abilene. It also goes over to Shreveport. It's a really big area. So but most of it is concentrated in the DFW area. But we do have 39,000 units. Well, I looked back, I did a 10-year look back just to kind of see where this put us historically. And we are creeping up really close to a 10-year high because it looks like back in 2019, summer of 2019, we hit 44,000 units, and that was the peak. And so we're only, 4,000 units away from an all-time high. So basically we need to go up another 10%, and we will be at an all-time high. And from the market and everything, what they're talking about, I don't really see this slowing down. I do feel like things are steady stacking up.
It's an all-time high or
10-year
all-time
high
high? Oh, 10
units,
years. Okay.
10-year, 44,000 units in 2019. So what the 10-year look back, that's as far as I can look back. So I'd have to
Okay.
look back and see, what it was in like 08 and all that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so 44,000 units, we're getting really close to that. Things are definitely trending that way unless rates drop enough to really make people rush into the market. But even if that happens, more people are going to try to sell, which means more units are going to be out there. And so I do feel like it's trending this way. And a lot of the news pretty much just hints at the same things. They're talking about similar things just in different ways. And one of the other things, this was a national article that let me look at this number. It said 15%, about 56,000 homes in the month of June, 15% of homes fell out or were canceled. I thought that was a crazy number. 15%, I guess, is a national statistic. But, my neighbor, I said they fell out early on. And interestingly, I talked to him yesterday, and that buyer, they canceled their contract during the option period because of the train nearby. They got scared of how loud the train was going to be.
Wow.
They hadn't even done their inspection yet. And they kept asking questions about the train. And we're probably...
This is on your friend that's a flip?
No, next door. So this is next door to me.
Next door. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
the
Got
people,
it.
they had a contract and it
you were
dropped
talking
out.
about that last week going, I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on with
Yeah,
this
I don't
thing.
know what's going on. Well, I talked to him yesterday
Okay.
and he said, yeah, they got scared of the train. There's a train track about a half a mile away, I would guess.
But
honestly,
we just... how often does it go by?
Well, one, Carrollton has a law, they can't blow their horn. So
Okay.
it's very, very rare that you have, I'm guessing it's some sort of emergency type horn they'll have to blow every once in a while,
Yeah.
but it's very rare that you hear the horn. And so then after that, it's just the rumble. You hear a rumble
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while, but you have to be outside. If you're inside, good luck. You're probably not going to hear it. But I remember when we bought in this neighborhood, that was
And
the
it's
sales
freight,
rep.
right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a freight
Yep.
train.
Freight train.
It's not dart, you know.
Nope. Nope. It's just this kind of low rumble.
Yeah.
And the sales rep had a video inside the model home or something that he would show people, because I guess this question came up a lot. And he would sort of show off the insulation of the windows and how quiet it was inside, because it
Yeah.
was something I guess he was having to address a lot. But yeah, so they next door they had a contract and they backed out just because of the train. But yeah, 56,000 units, 15% over the in the United States were canceled in the month of June, and evidently that was a record, which is
Huh.
kind of an insane thing.
People just getting cold feet,
Cold
or, you know,
feet,
I don't
or
know. You know, it's interesting to see. I mean, if we're truly are at an can't speak today, an all-time high for inventory, you know, like it'd be interesting to know why, right? Like
mm-hmm.
what's the premise, right? Like what's
Is
the
it
driving factor?
financing? Right.
Is it financing? Is it the economy? Are people, you know, are people downsizing? Are people looking to cash out?
Well, they have more
Are
options.
they equity heavy? Yeah,
You
are they
know, they
equity
have more
heavy? And they're
options.
like, man, we got to do something. You know, we got to get some money. You know, uh, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, we were speculating yesterday on the buyer side. You know, if your option, if you're in for, let's say, 500 option, you know, $200 an option, and earnest money can be tricky getting back if you're on the sell side. So there's some buyers aren't even really intimidated once they even get past the option period. And so if another house pops up, there's more and more inventory. If another house pops up, they're kind of in the catbird seat a little bit. And
Hmm.
a few of these articles have said, you know, we're definitely moving towards a buyer's market. Our MLS is at 4.3 months inventory, which is up from 3.2 a year ago. So just for context, last
Yeah.
summer we were at 3.2 months of inventory. Now we're at 4.2, 4.3. And where we actually are, our county is 3.9, a little bit lower, but we're getting closer to that 6 month, what they say is a balanced buyer seller's market, but it feels like a buyer's market already. And some of the sentiment and the news stories are hinting at that. The other statistic, and this one was a national, said 20% of homes for sale last month had a price cut. And our in our market, we can look at this. We can look at the percentage of original price that things sell for. Right now, in our Dallas MLS, the average percentage of the original sales price is 96. So once you list it, it's on average coming down 4%, which that is it's been around 98. You know, we've had some
Hmm.
runs where it's been over 100, you know, where it's went over asking. But early in 2023, when the rates really went crazy, people were having a hard time pricing, and it went down to 93%. It looks like right here the trough was 93%.
Hmm.
And then it kind of averaged back out around 96, 94, 96. And I think anytime the rates change a little bit, it takes the market a minute to kind of adjust of how we should price. But you could
Hmm.
definitely see this dip here where it took a while for people to really figure out how to price their house.
Well, keep in mind, you know, it goes back. We talk all the time, right, about pricing and knowing what you're doing pricing. That's not to fool people to think that things still don't sell over asking,
Yeah, they
because
can.
they do. In fact, the one that I listed here a few weeks ago in Plano, we talked about, it ended up selling for um, over asking, right? We
Yeah.
ended up, I mean, 2 days on the market right before the fourth, and had multiple offers, ended up getting 3 offers in hand, had more coming, kind of stopped the deadline, and ended up working an offer. And we ended up, you know, going in contract, you know, over asking,
Yeah.
and ended up appraised over asking as well.
Yeah. There you
So
go.
I
That's the
will
big
tell
trick.
you, and this is something that's crazy. This hasn't happened to me in years, probably like 15 plus years. People used to have a whole mindset about FHA financing. And part of that is because the appraiser does have the authority to basically, they don't inspect the house, but they appraise the home. And if they see something that they feel is not up to par, or it could be a safety issue, it could be a functionality issue, meaning if your appliance doesn't work, if your stove doesn't work, or, you know, dishwasher, I don't even, maybe they check your microwave too, I don't know. But if you have things like that that are inoperable, and I haven't even seen that in years that they even test that stuff. But we did get flagged on three things. So it was an appraisal over asking came in, but it was subject to repairs, and we were like, "Holy crap! I haven't seen this in
Yeah.
15 years, man." It was
Yeah.
wild, and it wasn't that big of a deal. It was. I think that the seller was pretty irritated because the seller was already giving it credit for some other things, and he was kind of misled, and when it came up that maybe it was the buyer asking for it,
Mm.
and I'm like, it's not the buyer, and he's like, is this legit? Like, so I'll tell you the three things. One was the vegetation. The southwest side of the house had extra, like the bushes were touching the house. It was a
Mm.
brick house. The bushes were touching the house, so he had to cut that back like a foot. So go out there with a hedge clipper and cut it
Mm-hmm.
back. Kind of goofy, but whatever. They flagged that. Then they flagged smoke detectors.
Mm.
So surprisingly, that wasn't brought up in the
Well, I
inspection
was going to ask. So
specifically.
these are things that didn't come up on inspection. These are all
Yeah, well, they they may have, but the buyer didn't ask for them,
okay.
right? So they weren't addressed at that point. The buyer asked for a credit mainly because this house had cast iron pipes, and they cambered them, and there were some things in the cast iron that spooked them a little bit, but they didn't do a hydrostatic test. So it's
Mm.
kind of one of those unknowns. We know we know it's cast iron. We know that it's kind of lived its life and it's possible. So they ended up getting a pretty good credit from the seller going towards the concept of replacing the cast iron pipes without having to do it before closing. So that being said, there was a pretty big credit there. Um, but so the vegetation was one, smoke detectors was another one, and I was kind of surprised that there wasn't at least one hardwired smoke detector in the hallway. Normally there is, so I mean, who
Mm-hmm.
knows what happened? It was a rental for this client for many years. Nevertheless, so that required him to go and buy 5 battery operated smoke detectors and install them, and then the outside has this pergola, cedar pergola, and they flagged it, and it was because the clear coat or the polyurethane, I say polyurethane, but the sealer was peeling as its southern exposure. It was kind of flaking off,
Mm-hmm.
and they flagged it,
On the
and
appraisal?
yeah, and she flagged it, said you can't have peeling paint or exposed wood,
What?
and we're like, holy crap, and this is on the like covered patio that's built out of cedar, right? Like, uh, it is a covered roof shingled section, but it's made out of cedar. So we're like, oh my gosh. So of course my seller was pretty upset, but this happened last Friday, and so over the weekend he got out there and he prepped it. He hit it with a power washer on the exterior and got it all cleaned up. Well, it looks so good with a power washer. He sent me a picture, and I'm like, man, did you restain this? And he's like, no,
Mm.
it's just power washed. And of course, we were supposed to have a lot of rain this week, and so he was kind of freaking out, like,
Yeah.
what's the deal? Nevertheless, it looked really good, just power washed. And I sent it to the appraiser and sent her pictures and said, hey, look, there's no more peeling paint. And I sent her a clip of like a research, cedar and the exterior elements and the purpose of cedar and that it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
rot and yada
Right.
yada yada. And I sent her that article and I said, you can seal it or stain it if you want, but it's not, you don't have to, right?
Yeah. Right.
And the whole hang up was he was like, man, if I have to restain this thing, yeah, I can't do it till Thursday. And now we're going to
Mm-hmm.
delay closing and because they have to do a full reinspection. Fortunately, she was cool. I sent her the pictures and she goes, it looks good. There's nothing peeling. So I think it'll pass. And then she came out and walked the job on Monday
Hmm.
and said it looked good. She signed off,
Yeah, I've
and
never
so
heard of
we're
that.
able to keep everything in track. But
That
it
would be
was,
a double whammy to get on the appraisal, which is
yeah,
typically, I don't know what, 2 weeks after your option period. I mean, usually it's pretty late in the game. And if for them to come back and ask for things on top of the option, if you were the seller, you're like, wait a minute, we've already negotiated all this
yeah,
stuff. We've
yep.
moved past this. Now you're on the hook for other things just to get the house to appraise. So yeah, that would really suck.
Yeah, subject to appraisal. So I mean, my seller was. I love my seller. He's a business guy, but he was very confused. And he was like, if this doesn't work, the seller's just going to have to do it themselves. And I'm like,
Yeah.
or the buyer's going to have to do it themselves, And I'm like, that doesn't work that way. Like this
Yeah.
is a lender.
We have to get them to
Unfortunately,
sign
we're
off on it.
subject to this deal, and anyways, it all worked out, but it was one of those things. And like I said, I don't know if it's a new appraiser and she just was
By
following
the
the
book.
book,
Yeah.
or if it's really something now that they're putting back in motion again, because it
Hmm.
used to be one of those things that with FHA that you would have to be kind of cautious of.
I wonder, where does the insurance, so does insurance, do they go off of that appraisal to say, yeah, this is insurable? Or they don't ever send out a representative to say, because to me, that's more of an insurance deal. Like, hey, we need you to protect this material
Well,
because we're not going to have a claim on it down the road because it's rotting or whatever.
FHA is an insurable loan, right? So that's what basically it protects the lender in the sense that that it allows you not to do not to have to put 20% down, right?
Okay.
Essentially, FHA is covering that 20%
The
gap.
spread,
Yeah, in the deal, right? You putting 3.5% down, they're covering the difference for the lender up to 80%
the
LTV,
risk. Yeah.
right? And so that's part of their guidelines. So part of the underwriting guidelines is subject to appraisal, and then according to the appraiser, the house has to be livable, functional, not have anything that's deteriorating or falling apart.
Sure.
Essentially is what they're looking for, and safety issues. They want to make sure it's safe. So therefore, smoke detectors and things like that.
Side note, speaking of safety, have you ever done Section 8? I had an investor asking about Section 8 the other day. Is that something you've ever messed with?
I have not. I mean, I looked into it years ago, and I think it could be beneficial. Because once you're approved and you're set up as a landlord in their system, I mean, they pay you a premium,
Hmm.
and it's like clockwork when they pay you, and they've got to do like quarterly inspections on the
Yeah, I
property.
know that there's sort of
Um,
this threshold of safety, and you have to have a certain amenities and square footage, and that's what
yeah,
he was asking. He's like, "Hey, do you think this would qualify for Section 8?" He's like, "Well, I don't know much about it, but this is a new build." I'm like, "I would be really shocked if this new build wouldn't qualify." He was
yeah.
wanting to do this
You have to
complex thing.
check the areas. You can go on their website and check the areas and see what the market rates are
Yeah,
in that pocket, in that zip code. It I mean, there's been pushback over the years just because, what ends up happening is you get somebody with a Section 8 voucher, and they get the voucher. They've got to come up with X amount of dollars. Let's say it's
right.
$1,400 a month in rent. Their voucher may be good for, $1,000.
1,100. Yeah,
Yeah. And so they got to cover the difference. Right. Um, and that works out really well. But what happens is then you have like friends and family. They're like, oh, you got a voucher? Oh, you got a 4-bedroom house? Like,
yeah.
oh, I'm gonna move in with you. We're gonna
Hmm.
come over there, and you got multiple people living there. You got other people that don't respect it.
Yeah,
You have people that don't. Again, bottom word is they don't respect the property. So
yeah,
you hear some horror stories, but you hear horror stories with normal rent too. So
yeah,
to each his own, with it. But I know some people that have had a lot of success with it, and
yeah.
it can be done. I haven't physically done it. Over the years. I've had people prompt me when I've had a property listed for rent, and they've prompted me saying, "Do you allow Section 8, or do
Hmm.
you, you know,
You have are you
would you
approved?
approve Section 8?"
Yeah.
So
No, yeah, I want to look into it a little bit more with him. He's he's kind of changing lanes several times, and I want him to find something, but he hasn't. I think it's a little bit of, and we all fall into this. It's a little bit of shiny object syndrome. And you listen to a podcast or you read a book. It's like, hey, this seems interesting. This seems interesting. And he's never really jumped in. I think once he jumps in with his first one and finds his lane, he'll do really well with it because he's got great income and he wants to do it. It's just, I think right now it's just analysis paralysis. Just there's so many ways to go about making money, and trying to find the perfect way is really difficult. So anyway, trying to help him narrow that down. Well, let's get into a little bit of news. We spoke last week. We talked about our friend Shaquille O'Neal. It's buying a house over in Rowlett. He was seen at a Canes, which we will mention Canes side story in a second. And he was seen at a Canes ordering a box combo or whatever he was getting, an extra toast, like I get it. And we were speculating, is he going to sell his Carrollton house? His Carrollton house is like a mile from my house. And it's a little gated neighborhood, probably 10 houses. Well, sure enough, this week in the news, he has listed his Carrollton house for sale. And I was looking through the pictures of it. It's it's fine. They're listing it for 1.7 million. But to look at that house, you would just never think this is one of the most famous NBA players ever. He's still super A-list. He can't walk in anywhere and someone not recognize him. He's on TNT.
Well, not only that, he's done well with the money he's made. He's reinvested it really.
Yeah,
he's
invested a ton.
He's involved in several things. And
has
made his money. He has made his money work for him. Right.
Yeah.
So,
but good for him. He could afford a $20 million just insane house, but this is just a very, fairly normal looking $1.7 million house in the middle of Carrollton.
So the side note, speaking of Shaq, one of my friends that I've gotten to know over the years at the lake, and he's pretty young. This guy's probably in his young 30s. He's friends with another friend of ours that's a sailboater, and nevertheless, and he was a sailboater as well, but he's a pilot, and somehow he got the gig. I think it's going on maybe 2 years, and he is Shaq's pilot. He is Shaq's private pilot.
Private pilot. That's awesome.
And so he flies Shaq around wherever Shaq needs to go, and sometimes like they keep the plane in Atlanta, and so he'll take a commercial airline, and fly to Atlanta, and they go pick up the plane, and then go and pick them up and fly them around. Yeah. But I guess he's officially in Shaq's crew now. I guess they were in Vegas not too long ago, and Shaq surprised them with a chain with basically a gold and diamond chain, I guess, that's got his name customized in it. And I guess that I haven't seen them. We'll have to look it up to see exactly what it is, but it's basically like a medallion chain that I don't know if it has a pit bull on it or something. It's got something that's whatever Shaq's logo.
Yeah.
And so Shaq and his crew wear these chains.
That's funny.
And now if people see him wearing that chain, like he goes to a club or he shows up somewhere,
knows who he's with.
They make him, his crew's got to wear this chain. And and he had
That's funny.
He's never had anything like this before, and he had to get it appraised and the whole 9 yards, but it was a gift. And so now he's like hanging out with Shaq and wearing this chain. So
that's a nice gig.
Yeah, very interesting deal.
Interesting life. Yeah. One time in home health, I met a private pilot or a private plane stewardess. She worked for the same family for 15 years, and they were just on this crew. They'd fly over the world, hang out for a while, then they'd go here, go there. They had 2 planes, and they were just always going somewhere, and they would put them up in decent places. I'm like, man, that's a great job if you can get it. So I'm sure it's the same for him. It's like, man, once you land that, you kind of try to hold on to that. So so Shaq is
that relationship.
Shaq is putting up his house in Carrollton. He will no longer be my neighbor. I won't see him at the local racetrack filling up his car, But he's moving out to Rowlett, getting a little land.
So what's he doing
in
Rowlett? Is he getting something on the lake out there?
It didn't mention if it was a lake house. I'll have to find the house that he bought. It may be on the lake. I don't know, but it was a lot more expensive. So maybe he was just kind of moving to town, getting the lay of the land, figuring out where he wanted to be, and then he's getting something nicer because the one out in Rowlett was more expensive. So I'll have to find some links and I'll send it to you.
I've seen some things discussed about Shaq, selling his multi-million-dollar home in California and then, downsizing and moving to Carrollton,
Yeah.
for this measly $1.7 million home. And,
Yeah.
so maybe now he's like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to sell this and maybe get
Yeah.
something on the lake out there. So,
So two more quick news stories that related to that. So I mentioned someone saw Shaq at Canes. Lanes. Are you familiar with Lanes?
mm-hmm.
Laynes. So Lanes and Canes are almost identical restaurants. And if you look at a picture of their food, it does look identical. And
Same concept. Yeah.
same concept, chicken tenders, crinkle cut fries, Texas toast, and then this ketchup pepper based cane sauce. I mean, it looks very similar. Now they do offer a few other options. So Lanes was in the news as far as real estate goes. It popped up on the Dallas Morning News real estate page. They are relocating their headquarters. They're expanding their headquarters and had purchased a warehouse with some more space. And I can't even, it might be over in the Capel area. That's probably wrong. But the thing in my mind was like, I didn't know that they were very big at all. I've only ever seen one or two Lanes ever. And I always had in my mind that Lanes knocked off Canes and it was sort of this sort of minor player. Well, as a matter of fact, and Kane, because I know someone in Canes corporate, they're expanding all over the world. I mean, he's over in Dubai, he's in Qatar, like they're all over the Middle East now. Canes, they're expanding globally, and they're doing deals with the rapper Ice-T. They're doing deals with Post Malone. I mean, they're big time.
Yeah.
And it turns out
I'm not
Lanes, you're not
a fan of Canes. No.
I do like Canes, unfortunately.
A lot of people do. A lot of people do. I don't know what it is. To me, it must be the oil, the flavor of the oil or something they cook it in. I just, I don't know. It just has a weird taste, and then it is not friendly to my digestive system. So,
hey, if anything keeps you out of the Canes, then count that a blessing, because my stomach, it's fine with it. Unfortunately, I'm fine with that.
I mean, if I'm gonna go for, I've actually had Lanes, and Lanes is not too bad. I'm not a big fried chicken, kind of person, or chicken finger deal, but I do like Chick-fil-A. I mean, Chick-fil-A is kind of a staple, but
well, I'm big on I like Canes, and then I like hot wings, and a good combo of that. I was looking at a house I actually did an open house, and I want to say it wasn't Keller, but it was over that way. Maybe it was like Bedford or something like that. And I had a little bit of time, and I went to this Korean fried chicken place, and it was this awesome combo of fried chicken and hot wings. It was overly breaded,
or not been. Is it like one of those weird?
I don't. It wasn't. It almost just felt like a wing place. I mean, it just
okay.
But it just so happened to be that I think I even just ordered like the Korean style wings. Anyway, it's really, really great. But we're getting sidetracked by chicken wings. But Lanes has been around.
Are talking about food.
Hey, we went to the gym this morning. We deserve to at least talk about food. So they were around 2 years before Canes. And Lanes only has 20 locations, and now they're expanding, and they've got this new warehouse coming in, which is really cool. And Canes, who knows? I think they have hundreds of locations at this point. And like I said, over in the Middle East, and they're really, really expanding. So I actually listened to the origin story of Canes on how I built this. Guy Raz has a cool podcast, How I Built This. And the founder, Todd, was on there. Todd lives in Dallas. And he was telling how it started. And he did not mention, I don't think, going into a Lanes over in Texas A&M and seeing the concept and liking it. And the article that I read actually says both of them are based on Zaxby's. Zaxby's was around 3 or 4 years before both of them. So it was Zaxby's, then Lanes, then Canes. And so, but how people build their businesses and expand, really, really cool. Speaking of fast food and expanding, last story, I did see a national story. California has a concept retirement home, which is really cool, because I've always thought, we've gone on some of these cruises. Karen and Allie just went on a cruise, and they'll have just the most generic restaurants there. And I've always thought, why doesn't Chili's sponsor a cruise? Or I've said Taco Bell before, like, just have Taco Bell, have a few restaurants there that it's a known commodity. People want that, instead of coming up with generic Mexican place. Well, someone has done this at a retirement community in California. Taco Bell is opening their first 55 and older independent living center. and it's like a full-blown retirement community. And it just so happens that Taco Bell, it's like several of the things are Taco Bell themed, and there's food there that's Taco Bell. I think they might be in charge of food services or something. I don't think this is I don't think this is a spoof. This looked like a real article. So the idea of that I actually really like, and I think it will happen to where some of your bigger corporations will get in on this retirement community. Like we talked about it at the schools.
When I'm
like
70,
Prosper,
80 years old, I don't think I need to be eating Taco Bell every day.
No, that's wrong. If you make it to 80 years old, eat whatever you want. If you make it to that point, you don't have anyone telling you what to eat. Trust me. If you did it. So you're going to squeeze out another 3, like you're going to, you maybe die at 81 versus 83. But what is those 2 years? Like you're limping around, you're complaining about your hip, comparing your ortho doctor notes. Like it's not like, you just do you. So if Taco Bell is sponsoring your senior center, or Chili's or whatever,
constipated, that's for sure.
No, they'll have other issues going on. So I'm kind of hopeful that this takes off a little bit because we talked about Prosper School has Subway and Chick-fil-A and all that in there. So I think some of these senior places are going to kick it up a notch and maybe try to get some actual name brand sponsorship. So well, that will do it for us today. If you have not, please find us on YouTube, find us on Instagram, and then you can find Tavis. We have not done this in a while. If you want to find Tavis Westbrook on Facebook, it's Travis without the R. He does design work. Will help you with blueprints and figuring out layouts of design. Although right now he's pretty covered up. You may be out a few weeks if you get a design job right now. But if you have a house that is having a hard time selling, you want to sell it off market, a lot of our referrals, Tavis's referrals, come from Sphere of Influence and other realtors. So definitely reach out for that. I am Ashton Hines, the Dallas real estate guy on Instagram. And if you have a house that you need to buy or sell or would like to buy or sell, please reach out. I would love to help you. So like, subscribe to the podcast, send a link to it to a friend, and we would love you forever. Until next time, have a great day.
Later.